Welcome, brothers and sisters, to this Jehovah's Witness Jurassic Park mashup.
When we have control again.
You've never had control. That's the illusion.
Why is it a Jurassic Park mashup? I have no idea. I started making this video, I found a couple of clips to insert from Jurassic Park that I thought were funny, and then it just kept happening. This turned into a bit of a theme, it developed, and then this video fell out. So that's what we're dealing with. Once again, welcome
To Jurassic Park.
I have benefited so much from hearing other people's stories and experiences, and I'm sure that many of you listening have as well. I didn't want to do a faceless YouTube video, but the way that things have gone, which we will soon get to in short order, mean that at this time I'm not showing my face, and in a lot of ways I am grateful for that. I've got some mixed feelings about that, which we'll also get to, if you can put up with my fake Irish accent for that amount of time. Speaking of fake Irish accents, I was a graduate of the 199th class of Lloyd Evans voicemails.
Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to the attic. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from an anonymous caller. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Hi Lloyd, I am a physically and mentally out elder with a very sore throat, and I thought I'd take this opportunity to send this. You feel free to use it for your channel because I've got native inbuilt voice changing technology, so I thought it was a good opportunity.
Now, that was a lie. I was not, am not, nor have ever been an elder. I was a ministerial servant at the time, and I did have an upcoming public talk. The rest of that was true, other than also the fake Irish accent, which is still being employed now. And I say this to highlight just the lengths that I felt that I've needed to go to, and that others need to go to as well. But I'm a 31-year-old man, and I'm here hiding my identity behind a flimsy accent in a faceless YouTube video because of, well, we'll get into all of the things. You know the things. But
Yes. That's why we're taking extreme precautions.
I will react probably to that voicemail because I hadn't revisited that one in quite a while. The theme of that was, the title that Lloyd gave it was Pimo Elder, I Want to Exit Live on Stage. I have a lot of thoughts about the topic and the content of that video, and I have grown a lot since having made that video. And I can hear it even in the way that I'm expressing myself there and where my thinking and mentality was at. I have been on such a journey of growth over the course of this time as a PMO. Anyway, so you're probably wondering, did I exit live on stage? The answer is no, and I will discuss why shortly as well. Firstly, let me give you my JW stats and an introduction to my background and story. I am a third-generation witness on both my mother and father's sides. I was baptized at 14 and I pioneered after I finished school for 5 years. In that time, I went and served as a need grater, a literally very grating term. I was a ministerial servant, and my first 2 or 3 public talks were actually in a foreign language. I'm not going to give details of which language or country at this time.
Off the coast of Costa Rica.
Puesto 1,000 pesos que se cae.
But I was thrown into the deep end with that, and I loved it all at the time. It was a small congregation, and so after the maybe first 2 talks, I was on rotation to give a talk roughly every 6 weeks, each time with a new outline.
Every 6 weeks.
I've probably only ever done about 6 public talks in English, but I've done dozens in that other language and a couple of translated to different languages. I was a full believer. I never really doubted any of it, or at least not at any substantial level. My doubts were instead confined to myself. Was I good enough? Was I doing enough? Was I doing things with the right motivation, etc., etc.? Some of that is healthy self-reflection, and a lot of it is not. I was 30 years old when I woke up. That was 18 months ago. Now, what was it that woke me up? You've heard other people's stories, and if you're anything like me, that is always one of the most fascinating things. What wakes people up? Was it the Australian Royal Commission? No. I even watched most of that footage at the time, or close to the time, and that didn't even remotely wake me up somehow. I'll talk about that another time, but, was it COVID? No. I had a really hard time during COVID, as a lot of people did, because of, amongst other things, the interpretation that our local elders at the time gave to the powers vested in them.
Do they show intelligence?
They were strict and they were foolish, drunk on their silly little power trip. But that didn't wake me up. They are just men, you see.
I can tell instantly about people.
The problems with CSA, as per the ARC,
It's all the files of the whole park. It tells you everything.
they're all imperfect individuals. But to be sure, God's organization is a clean one, is it not? I was so convinced that it was, I didn't even feel the need to check. I knew that everything would be handled decently in my arrangement. I just didn't know what the arrangement was, and apparently they didn't know what decently was. And the COVID Nazis, well, that's annoying, but it doesn't mean that this isn't God's organization. Do you want to know how stupid I was? I was so indoctrinated. I so firmly believed all of it that the only, and I do mean only, reason that I got the COVID vaccine was because all the members of the governing body got it. So I reasoned, in the loosest possible use of that term, that it must be safe and okay, because God wouldn't allow all of them to have it if it wasn't. It doesn't matter for the purposes of this what your opinion on the COVID vaccine was or is. Imagine thinking that. Imagine that you did or did not want to get it, and making the opposite decision for the sake of the same people who decided last Friday that you can clink your glasses together and say cheers if you want to.
Yeah. Cheers.
I mean, I'll drink to that, but my God, this is why a lot of former Jehovah's Witnesses become hugely interested in psychology. We're trying to figure out what the hell we were thinking and how it is possible that we were ever so badly duped. Side note, since then, I have had some strange and concerning health issues which I personally believe are the result of the vaccine. That's neither here nor there for the sake of this topic, but hey, this is my video and I wanted to share that, so there it is. Part of this video, as we'll get to in a moment, is about me reclaiming my voice. So, it's mine, I said it. There it is.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
Do you want to know what it was that actually woke me up? It was stupid, really. And I am somewhat embarrassed that it wasn't some of those other things or a million other shifting doctrines or failed predictions. No. A brother, in conversation, mentioned, just casually, that we didn't know why Tony Morris was removed from the governing body. Now, that had happened about a year prior to this conversation, and see, I thought that we did know that. I had heard that it was due to health issues of either him or his wife, some nebulous health issues.
We miss you.
And that they were leaving to take care of that, quietly and privately like. He said that he had heard that too, but that it was only a rumour and that nothing official had been said aside from the little banner announcement on the website and the app to say that Tony Morris is no longer a member of the governing body. He had such conviction about that simple statement that I believed him. The conversation moved on, but I didn't.
It's a digger.
Later that evening, I took a look on jw.org to see what I could see. But all that I could see was a whole lot of nothing. And this is the thing. I understand Jehovah's Witnesses. I understand the organization. The culture of it runs through my blood, and their weasel words are the syntax of my mind. So I knew that if it was in fact true, that nothing more official had been said, that this meant it was a scandal. Essentially, their official announcement was the same as if someone was disfellowshipped. Oh, I'm sorry, removed. Footnote. Some expressions have been changed. Footnote to the footnote, for legal reasons. So, Tony Morris had been removed from the governing body in a manner that implied something significant was wrong. And we knew nothing about it. Now, for whatever reason, I felt that I was entitled to that information. It just didn't sit right with me that they wouldn't tell me what was going on, or even that there was something going on. Like maybe if he'd cheated on his wife, for example, I didn't need to know that. I didn't need to know the details. But they weren't being transparent about the fact that something was wrong. If this was a local elder who was removed from his position, typically we would know if it was due to wrongdoing or not. Well, this seemed to matter to me, so I couldn't find anything useful on jw.org. Other than the absence of information. There was nothing like a thank you for your faithful service, no puff piece kind of garbage like that. Nothing. So, I took to Google instead. I looked up Tony Morris III, and As a timid little physically in, mentally in witness, a PME, for those in the know, I didn't click on most of the results. There were some articles from jw.org in the results, some video links with salacious titles, but I decided to run with Wikipedia, a relatively safe, relatively neutral source. Now, I didn't find anything new about Tony Morris. It simply said that he had left the governing body in unclear circumstances. But there was a table of all the governing body members with dates of service and references. Some of them had no references to external links, some had one or two, but there was one who had more than the rest, and I had never heard of him. His name was Raymond Franz. And I found out that he left the governing body. I never knew that. He left Jehovah's Witnesses?
He left us.
And he had written a book about it. Salacious. I'd never heard of this. Well, I was too scared to read that kind of apostate material, but I wasn't too scared to look at the reviews for it on Amazon. Perhaps you're familiar with the kind of furtive eye movements that you use when you're a PME looking at things on the organization that you shouldn't be. I wanted my eyes to linger on a review long enough to predetermine whether it was safe to read. Basically to pre-read it before I read it.
Keep absolutely still. This vision's based on movement.
I say this to highlight the absolute absurdity, the absurd reality, and control of thought and information that typifies being a Jehovah's Witness. Well, the reviews were good.
It was fantastic. It was so scary.
It really was the most exciting film I've ever seen.
The thrills never stopped. It was amazing.
It was really good. It was a little scary sometimes. Sometimes it was funny.
It's the best picture I've seen in about the last 10 years.
One, in particular, said something like, his tone was not angry or bitter. It was beautifully written and clear that he wrote from a place of sadness and disappointment. Well, that was enough for me. I downloaded a free PDF of Crisis of Conscience. Well, that is a real page-turner. I couldn't stop reading. I was casually reading it on my phone whenever I got a free moment to myself. I had to keep this banned material out of the view of my wife, but this man was the real deal.
I read your book.
He got it. He had lived the organization at every level, from back in their all the more extreme form. He slaved for the organization, gave everything in order to serve his God. When he told his stories of what it was like serving on the governing body, I knew that they were true. He had the receipts, sure, but beyond that, it had, as Jehovah's Witnesses call it, the ring of truth. I whiplashed from PME to PMO overnight. I knew straight away that everything I had 100% believed until that point had been called into question, and I knew that some very key fundamental parts of it were simply wrong. I couldn't tell anyone, though. Too dangerous.
Seriously?
I had to pretend. I read Crisis of Conscience, and then his second book, In Search of Christian Freedom. I had now given myself permission to access any and all information. I watched every video that Lloyd Evans had ever made. I poured through jwfacts.com. I watched a bunch of other channels on YouTube as well. JW Thoughts, Hi Wally, ExJW Caleb, ExJW Panda, Stop the Shunning, Hi Beth.
Hello. Hello. Say hello.
Her husband's channel that escapes my mind at the moment, and as does his name. Sorry, it's is that ExJW Critical Thinker? I don't know. I get them mixed up. There's so many. I watched a lot. Jake at Alt Worldly, some hilarious content there. I watched every judicial recording I could find. I watched all of the Berean Pickett's videos up until that time. It was cathartic. It was therapeutic. I would listen to it as I worked, as I walked, as I drove, as I had any moment to myself. It was incredible. I thank you all so much, and so many more. There are so many who have made one video or a handful just to share their experiences. I can see parts of myself in all of your stories, and that is why I want to share mine. Stacey from the Escaping Paradise podcast, he's another one. Thanom Jackson. I keep thinking of more. I feel like Paul. Time would fail me if I tried to mention you all. Now, we're really on to the PMO stage of this story. Now, PMO, physically and mentally out, is a horrible place to be.
What's going to happen again?
If you are there now, know that you are not alone. reach out. I will put a means of contact in the description. It gets better. Hang in there. But just know that it legitimately sucks.
That is one big pile of shit.
That's valid. It sucks. You're not crazy. For me, this period of time was a lot of things all at once. It was disillusioning. My entire worldview was shifting. I didn't know what I believed. I didn't know what was true, what was real. I had to grapple with understanding cognitively that a lot of things that I thought were true were not, but not really fully reconciling that just yet, even though I knew I didn't know it, if that makes sense. Realization that this is not what I thought it was, and so then by extension, if it's not what I thought it was, what is it? What is this thing that I'm a part of?
Damn it. Dead end.
And then the realization that I was in a precarious position. I was in danger of losing contact with my entire family and more or less everyone who I had ever known.
Because we're being hunted.
I also had the realization that I didn't have a voice. And this last one is a big deal because I had never realized that I didn't have a voice until suddenly there were all these things that I had to say, which I knew that I couldn't say.
Quiet, all of you.
I want to take this story out of order for a bit to just follow this thread because this is important. I know that a lot of current JWs who are physically in but mentally questioning, or physically in, mentally out, heck, even physically and mentally in, if you are brave enough to be here, you're welcome. Welcome. I love you. I mean you no harm. But a lot of you will resonate with this specifically. I was awake and getting more awake by the moment, yet it was roughly 5 months before I said a single thing to a single soul about that. That soul was my wife. I'll come back to that. But it was then not long after that when I started mentioning it to some normal, worldly people. I told a local dad that I'd met at the park. I told a work connection who lived on the other side of the world. I called into Lloyd Evans' channel. Each person I told, whether directly or in a message, each one was a step at reclaiming my voice.
It's all right.
Like hell it is.
The first person I told other than my wife, it felt like such a sin. I was giving a bad witness. I was saying negative things about the organization. Oh. For years, I have wanted to do a podcast. Not necessarily one specific topic. I've just toyed with the idea of it across many topics. Only after I woke up did I realize that I could not make a podcast as a PME. For me, personally, my indoctrination would not allow it. I eventually reached out to a therapist. I did so under a fake name with a fairly anonymous email address. I mean, a therapist, as though she was going to turn me in and rat me out to my local elders. Come on. I just felt that I was running.
Must go faster.
It's also cloak and dagger. Even now, and I have grown a lot in the last 18 months. I feel like I'm experiencing about a decade's worth of growth per year at this point, and even now, I'm here not showing my face and using a pretty terrible Irish accent.
Dodson!
Didn't use my name.
You know what I said?
Dodson! Dodson! We've got Dodson here! See, nobody cares. Nice hat. You trying to look like a secret agent?
But that's not just play acting cloak and dagger. I know what will happen if I show my face. It is extremely likely that within a week, possibly within a day, my family will find out about it and I will be branded a full-on apostate and probably cut off forever. Now, if you are currently a witness, you might say, well, you are an apostate. Okay, says who? What exactly is it that I have said so far that is untrue? See, the governing body merges false and negative together when they talk about apostates.
Have you ever been confronted by a bad report, a false report about Jehovah's people? Negative reports. At times, we may even be cast in the role of deceivers. So when we're confronted with negative, false reports,
negative reports about Jehovah's Witnesses in the media, how does it make you feel? When you leave the forum, do you feel upbuilt? Determined to expand your ministry? More convinced than ever that Jehovah has an organization that you love and that you're delighted to be a part of. You feel honored to be a part of that organization. Or does the experience leave you sad, uneasy, uncomfortable?
When you're confronted with such a report, how do you feel? Disheartened? Discouraged? angry.
So this is very subtle because I never picked up on this as a witness. But what they're doing here is they're taking the negative feelings that are associated both with being lied to as well as with hearing something that you don't like, even though it might be true or even though it is true. And so they're focusing on the fact that your feelings are hurt and that it didn't make you feel good and that it was uncomfortable. But sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. And so if you love truth, you have to be willing to put up with that discomfort for the sake of being honest, for the sake of being truthful. Now, I wasn't really intending on making a long video about their videos in this video, but as I was looking for those couple of clips, there's so much in those videos. It's a rich treasure trove of spiritual gems. So I will have to come back to those. But right now, there's one more little clip that I want to play, and then we're going to get back to my story.
Consider the experience of a pioneer sister who was conducting a Bible study. And in the course of conducting the study, a woman walked into the house unannounced. She didn't ring the doorbell, didn't knock. And as it turned out, an acquaintance of the student, she walked right in, interrupted the Bible study, and in her hand was a book written by a man who at one time had associated with Jehovah's people.
I downloaded a free PDF of Crisis of Conscience. Well, that is a real page-turner.
The woman said to the student, "You need to read this book."
I understand how to read a schematic.
Well, an interesting conversation ensued, and our sister found herself in the position of being cast in the role of a deceiver.
Now, this is a really clever strategy here, because an individual witness does not consider themselves to be a deceiver. They consider themselves to be being honest, telling the truth, and sharing the truth about the Bible. But the reality is that they are deceived themselves, and so then as they pass that on to others, they are in fact deceivers. But because they don't see it that way, the way that he has framed this situation does not put the focus on the organization who has deceived the individual, but instead it's a story in which the individual is then being framed as the deceiver.
So you don't take any responsibility.
So the audience watching this is thinking, well, I'm not a deceiver. How rude of this woman who's walked into this house and not even rung the bell because she's obviously a better friend to this lady than I am, and has rudely interrupted this Bible study to bring evidence against the religion which I represent. And I am not a deceiver. But the reality is that though one may think that they are not, they in fact are.
So when we're confronted with negative, false reports...
But those are two very different things. If I say something false, please correct me. If I say something, however, that is not false and yet is negative, that, my dear brothers and sisters, is not a fault on my part. Apostates as portrayed by the organization virtually do not exist. Sure, some may be bitter, some may be angry, some may be mentally diseased, as they so eloquently put it. But perhaps their bitterness, anger, or mental disease comes from the way that they were mistreated by the organization. Most, however, are quite calm and reasonable. The term apostate is an ad hominem character attack designed to trigger everyone to avoid contact like the plague. This acts as a necessary immune defense system for an organization that cannot stand up to any actual scrutiny. They say apostate, and you get the image of the boogeyman in your head. There he is, a fire-breathing, venom-spitting, dirty, rotten apostate. Anyway, back to the part where I told my wife. There's never really a good time. My wife was pregnant with our third child at the time when I woke up.
Oh, Ellie, look, they're noisy, they're messy, they're expensive. Cheap. They smell.
They do not
Some of them smell. Baby smell.
So, do I tell her over breakfast that our entire religion and worldview is false, or do I wait until lunch to mention that Charles Taze Russell calculated the 1914 date by measuring the Great Pyramid of Giza? Do I tell her about Raymond Franz, the defecting governing body member? Do I bring him up when her feet are swelling and she feels like she's 147 weeks pregnant? Or do I wait until she is sleep deprived with a newborn to mention that Joseph Rutherford's takeover was a nasty mess of a power grab?
Maybe it's the power trying to come back on.
And that he is the reason that beards aren't allowed because he wanted to distinguish his followers from Russell, who had a beard. Now, side note, beards are allowed now. They weren't at the time of this story. Chronology. Keep up, sheeple. The chariot moves fast. That one was overturned in less than 100 years since Rutherford is first recorded as imposing a no-beard bargain in exchange for purchasing a printing press. It's real. Look it up. jwfacts.com. I guess I could have told her she was going into labour. I suppose that would have been an option as well.
Very good. Push. Push.
Come on, little one. Come on.
Come on, then. Push. Come on.
And push!
That's not funny. That was great.
Anyway, I ended up telling my wife when our new baby was about a month old. I asked her, "What convinces you that we have the truth?" She replied that it was the brotherhood, the love, the worldwide unity. She then asked me the same question in return, and I said, I no longer think that we do have the truth.
You never had control. That's the illusion.
There were tears. It was all a lot to unpack. But what I got from this conversation was priceless to me. I was fairly certain that our marriage could take this, that it would last. But this conversation confirmed it. Not knowing where we would end up, my beautiful wife made it clear that she wanted to end up with me. Whether she was to remain a witness or not, we were to remain a family, and that was a huge relief. That is more than many people in similar situations before me and since have gotten. Now, coming back to some of those themes I picked apart at the start, the next stages of the PMO journey, I ended up having written out this lengthy dossier of what I thought I needed to say. I wrote a 12-page letter that I was basically intending to send to everyone I'd ever known.
This workstation. What a complete slump.
Exposing a whole manner of things. It was a garbled mess, really. It was like sending them everything from jwfacts.com. It's not, because that's like probably 12 million pages long, because there's a lot of facts about JWs, but it was a lot. And if I had have gone earlier, if I had shot my shot earlier, made my move with our elders and my family and so on, I would have done something drastic like that. I would have done something drastic like what I called into Lloyd Evans' channel about exiting live on stage from a public talk. But I'm very glad that I didn't do that, any of those things, because I still haven't figured all of this out. But one thing I have really come to realize is that the best approach to being a dirty, rotten, lying, conniving, stinking, festering, oozing from your pores apostate, the best approach to that is to try and improve the image. To try and be as reasonable, as calm, and as happy as you possibly can. And so the approach that I ended up taking instead was condensing my letter to roughly 1.5 to 2 pages and only sending it as a message to my family. And this message that I sent was really I might share some of it at some point, but what I was really trying to aim at had also changed, because initially I wanted them to change. My goal with this 12-page thing and all of the other things that I was thinking of doing was maybe I can be the one to wake people up. Maybe I can convince them to change. But through the growth that I've experienced under this time, and through experiences that I've heard from many others, and through therapy, I've come to the conclusion that that's not the best approach. Instead, I decided to shift my basic goal and basic expectations towards wanting them to understand my position as best as they could and to not cut me off. That was the idea. And anything beyond that, I was going to say my piece. I was going to live in alignment and honesty and authenticity with myself and my values. And I wasn't going to set out to change them or change their mind. Now, thus far, to date of this recording, this seems to have somewhat worked, and I have slightly awkward, moderately strained, but continuing relationships with my family. And that may change. I don't know. Just recently, I met with a couple of our elders because someone from my family has obviously told someone else, and word is starting to get around.
The other two raptors, you didn't even know were there.
And so my elders found out about it. And I did agree to chat with them. And surprisingly, from that conversation, it does appear as though further action won't be taken at this stage. It appears as though they just wanted to genuinely try and help me. They seemed very genuine, and they did not treat it as a witch hunt. I don't think at this point that the troops will be rallying around in order to have me removed from the congregation. I don't know. But that's where it's at the moment. And so, as I said, I am grateful for the fact that I'm in a position right now where I don't feel comfortable sharing my face, because the reason for that is that my face is hideous. No, the reason for that is that my family are still talking to me. And so that is, again, more than a lot of other people get. I over the course of this 18 months, I have been collecting my information into a Google Doc that I just add to whenever I think of something, whenever anything comes up. And I have a very long list of things that I want to cover. Everything from a little mini-series I'm thinking of doing called Fly on the Kingdom Hall Wall, of little experiences that, you know, you just have these things that happen, and you get past them and you cover them over with love, and then you wake up and you realize what it was that you're a part of, and you look back on those instances and you think, what the hell was that? That is not normal. And many other things. So I do plan to share these things because I want to share it, to get it out there, to help other people who, I know I have binged so much of this content, so having more of it available constantly is so helpful. If you are thinking of making content like this, do it. It will be helpful. I will probably still watch it. I'm still somewhat binging. I'm binging a lot less now than I was. It was a lifeline for a period. I just could not stop. I had an insatiable thirst for ExJW content, but now, for the most part, that has slowed down. And that's great. And so what I want to do with this is I want to say all the things I have to say, and then I want to ride off into the sunset and get on with the rest of my life, because I've got a bunch of stuff that I want to do, and it's not all going to be related to this organization. So that's that. Have a great day.